Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name's Chris Yee.
I'm Alex Evans.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Joey Evans.
And today we're taking a look at this Wandering Towers. This is a game that came out at Spiel last year, was brought over to the US market by Capstone Games here. This is by Kramer and Kiesling, a design duo that's very well known for making all sorts of games. This is this a family game? Is this like how would you kind of say the weight or the approach of this game is?
I think it's a family game, but that I would still play with gamers.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got some solidness to it.
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, it has some whimsy, it has some silliness, and so I'm going to show you how this one plays, and then we'll give you your thoughts. Here's the setup of a two-player game of Wandering Towers, and based on player count, everyone will just have different number of meeples, and then there might be more starting out here. The goal of the game is to be able to move your wizards around in a clockwise fashion to where they all land exactly with the right number of movement in Raven's Keep Tower here. And when you have all of your wizards there, and when you have all of your potions filled, you'll win the game. Now, you're not just moving wizards, you're also able to move the towers themselves, and when you move them in such a way that they cover up any other wizards shown out here, you get to fill up one of your potions. So you need to cover them up a certain number of times based on player count, and have all of your wizards in here. Now, as I mentioned, player count setup is different according to this chart here, and also you are restricted which colors you can use based on player count, which is a small annoyance, but it's not the end of the world here. So, what do you do on a turn? On your turn, you can play one of the three cards from your hand that'll either show wizard movement, a certain number of steps, 1 through 5, or it will show tower movement, a certain number of steps, 1 through 5. Certain cards also show both, and you have to choose one or the either. So let's say that the blue player plays this one out here and is going to move one of their wizards 4 spaces. They will then end their turn unless they can spend potions to do magic abilities, magic spells. But there's nothing there yet. This player is going to reveal this one, and they're going to go ahead and move any tower that they wish 2 spaces. And since they cover up either player, they'll get to fill a potion. You can also cover up your own and still fill a potion. And now they could choose to spend their potions on a spell. So maybe they want to do this one here that says, move a tower 2 spaces. They could spend one of their potions, the cost of this. They remove it from the game. It's still filled, and it still counts towards their endgame objective. And then they can choose to move a tower 2 steps and get another potion. Now it's back to the blue player's turn, and they're going to go ahead and play out this card here. This one shows dice. So the die is going to be a random number, obviously 1 through 6, and you choose which one you want to do. The blue player wants to move a tower. They roll a die, and they got a number 5. So they're going to move this tower. They're going to actually, even though they have a guy covered up under here, which you're never allowed to peek, they're going to move this whole tower 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps because they're getting their little wizard hidden here closer to the keep. And then they're going to continue. So play goes on like this until at some point, through some manipulation and through some clever card play, a person is able to get a wizard with exact movement, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into Raven's Keep. They've now completed one of the steps of the game. Raven's Keep, living up to its name, will fly forward to the next space that shows the Raven's Keep symbol, but is also not occupied by wizards. So this tower will fly around over here and end its movement there. And now players have a new target to get to. So once players have all of their wizards in the tower and have all of the potions filled up, they will win the game. The game recommends you start with just these 2 basic magic spells, which is to move a tower 2 spaces forward and to move a single wizard 1 space forward. So if blue had this going on, and if they had a card that allowed them to move, say, just shy of their target, if they had this one that moved 1, 2, 3, 4, they could then spend 2 of their potions to activate the spell to move their wizard 1 more step, and then it would fly over and continue this way. Players can only ever drop off 1 wizard in the tower. Their turn will immediately end, and they'll have to draw back up cards. These are the started recommending spells, but there's additional spells, and the book says that you can play with any number of them. Ones that allow you to move your wizard back, or to piggyback. As any player moves their wizard, if you have one in the same spot, you can spend potions to also move with them. This one here is going to allow you to move the Raven's Keep Castle, to move a tower back 2 spaces, This one is going to allow you to swap the top of 2 different castle pieces. And once again, you cannot peek. Once you make a decision, you have to continue with it. So you might have to try to memorize where your pieces are covered up. And then this one down here, if you had a piece that was covered up, I'm the blue player and I spend the potion here to peek, I would spend one of these filled potions and I say, I bet I've got a guy here. If I am correct, he will move to the top of the tower. If this person was covered up right underneath where Raven's Keep was and they successfully guess, the person moves to the top, i.e. drops into Raven's Keep Tower, and that'll end their turn. So the winning conditions are the same, you just have fewer pieces in a higher player count game. There's also a sheet, or one part of the rulebook, which is just variants. A solo mode that you play without spells, where you try to use fewer than 30 cards. A solo mode with spells, but then you have to have potions in there, whereas in the mode without, you don't have the potions. There's a cooperative team mode, which functions the same, but players are working together. A nasty mode, which I will never play with, where you can use spells even on other players' turns. And then a team variant, where you can play in teams of 2 with 4 or 6 players. And then a nice little illustrated guide here of all those magic spell powers. So that is Wandering Towers. So first off, I think a lot of people want to know about the components, right? Because this is a game that is very components driven. How did you find that actually everything worked? Did it stack up correctly? Was it easy to make all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, putting it together was definitely a little bit of work, punching it all out and whatever, but so were a lot of games.
But I did appreciate the fact that they had thought about this and they've made space in the box for once it's built, it's built. You don't have to rebuild it every time. That is amazing. So it's that one time build and then you're done.
I do wish on the little black tower they didn't put a trash can symbol on the piece you throw away. So I just kept an extra piece for a while. I was like, do I need this?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's true too. I will say I put them together wrong the first time, and I'm like, they're not going together right. I did some sort of small tweak, and I'm like, okay, because I was really upset at first. I'm like, this keeps unfolding. And then I did something, folded it back in the other way. I'm like, okay, there, because I was like, I hate this game so much. And then now it fits.
Yeah.
And it stays together.
Was it user error? Is that what you're saying?
It was 100% user
How much
error.
origami did you do as a child?
I did none.
Well, there you go.
That explains.
That's the problem.
That's the answer right there.
Except for the thing that did, like, you could choose a name.
How are you a magician, a mentalist, and you're so manipulable and you're so bad at dexterity?
It's magic. It really is.
So speaking of magic, this game has a very whimsical kind of silly theme to it. You're trying to slam dunk your little wizards there into the tower, Raven's Keep, but you can also move the towers around.
Is there a theme behind that other than they are witches and there are towers?
Each year, the graduating classes of the Raven Realm Magic School compete to demonstrate their mastery of magic. For the final exam, all the wizards of each class must get to the legendary Raven's Keep, but every last one of them has procrastinated. I'm not going to read it.
You went like 4 accents during that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, this one, it's funny how it took a different direction, because I'm like, okay, you're looking at it like, you want to throw everybody else's wizards into that big like pit,
Yes,
right?
that's what I thought before I read the rule books. Yeah.
You're like, no, you want to get into that pit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
that was interesting.
So we're trapping each other so
In
that
the
we
pit.
can be the first to get our homework done and get it turned in.
Does it feel like a meme game? Because you're putting those toppers on top of the wizards.
I don't think so.
I think
It's so minimal.
No, it doesn't feel like that because it happens to everybody. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
Like your wizards are getting trapped, their wizards are getting trapped, everyone is getting trapped. It's fine. It's fair because it's across the board.
It's literally a requirement of the game. Like that's how you flip the potions over. It's a requirement to end the game, and so it has to happen. You do it to yourself. Like I'm going to cover myself up because I need another potion and I'm available.
And I will say, I like the 3-card Monte, the shell games type of thing, where you move it around, cups and balls. So I thought, okay, this is going to be really good. And I'm like, I can figure this out. But I'll tell you what, there's that other element where you go in the second level, then all of a sudden they move all of those over here, and you're like, and at first you're reading a rule like, well, if you touch a tower, you have to move that tower. I'm like, well, that's silly. Why would you have? Then you're like, oh, because you're like, I know I'm under here, and you pick it up, you're like, I wasn't under there.
Yes.
And that element, it's a lot more fun than I anticipated.
Yeah, that element of the memory adds a little curveball in there.
Do you think people who hate memory would still be okay with this? Like memory as a mechanism, not just memories in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think so, rather than, yes, because it's not like one of those memory cards, remember where this card is. I think so.
I think it depends on your level of annoyance with that, because there are definitely moments where I forgot where my stuff was. And so if that's like pivotal to you and you're like, I can't strategize now because I hate this memory element, I can see people being frustrated with it.
But the cards do allow you, like, let's say you've got two of the cards that let you move the towers. You could do one turn. Oh, it wasn't that tower. It's the other one. You can do it the next time. So I think it's not like once you've made that decision, you're stuck. You can kind of quickly like, oh, let's do the other one. So I think that helps it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that there's like a positive in the random nature of those cards, in that I don't think the player with the best perfect memory is necessarily going to always win the game, because
Yeah.
it's a pretty light game where there's just that like I can't draw this, move my wizard 4 spaces that I need to like slam dunk the last guy in there. All right, so what do I do to work around this? You know, there's enough like other random factors going on.
I agree.
Yeah.
What I think makes this really interesting is those special potion powers in the middle.
Yes, the spells.
And it's so
Yes.
interesting because reading the rule book, they're like, start with these 2. Also, you can have as many as you want in the game. It just makes it more
Right.
tactical.
Yeah.
And it really does, because you're now able to move towers, move characters, move Raven's Keep. You're allowed to just like mess
Piggyback.
with the board.
Yeah.
And so there's these moments where you're like, hey, if I move this backwards, then I can hop in. It's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of fun, but you only have 6 potions max. So it's not like you can just do tons of that over and over and over again.
Can't
Yeah.
spam the spell book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that for me kind of makes the game, because I thought that it was a fun, easygoing game. You could play it we play it with our 7-year-old daughter with just the 2 basic spells: move a tower or move a wizard.
Yeah.
And I think that also helps that feeling of like, oh, you trapped my last wizard. Spend a potion, get the spell. You know what I mean? Move it out of there. You just keep some things in your reserve.
Yeah.
Throwing in those extra spells are really nice. You've played with some of the extra ones
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Favorite
the
one.
combinations. I mean, all of them are good. Piggyback, I like, and then be able to move Raven's Keep. I like, really, those do add that extra element to it.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I feel like it's a waiting game. You're waiting for that keep to get close enough to you that you can hop in. You're waiting till you have enough cards to get around the board. The board feels really long.
Yeah.
So without that manipulation, I think it would be boring.
I just still love finding, like, moving a tower, and I'm like, didn't know there's someone right there. It's just, there's something rewarding about that.
I feel like also those spells give you a little bit more control of what you're wanting to do on your turn. It's not so random and luck based.
Right, there's a lot of games that, because this has the equivalent of roll the exact number to move your piece home in Sorry or
Right.
those types of games.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can say, I'm going to spend a potion, move this tower back 2 spaces so that I can play this 5 and move that 5. You know what I mean? Like you can do that.
Yeah.
I also love the rule that as soon as you drop 1 piece in Raven's Keep, your turn is done, so that you can't do a turn where like, I got 4 of them in there. This is not a like
Yeah.
save up for a mega
That's
turn
true,
kind
too.
of a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that overall, it seems like we're all speaking very positively of
Yep.
it. One of the last questions you mentioned, and you alluded to at the beginning, that you feel like you could play this with other gamers as well as with your
Right.
family. I mean, do you feel
Yes.
like you could play this in young kids could kind of get this as well?
Yeah, you mentioned your daughter at 7. We haven't played with ours yet, but I think she'd get it. I
think
think
she
it's
would get
really
this,
fun
too.
and tactile. Yeah.
Yeah, the memory element I think would be a little bit of a struggle, and definitely
Right.
the manipulation. You can't have very many of those potion cards out.
No,
you have
no.
to pick like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I probably the starter one.
Yeah, I was going to say if we were playing with a kid, we would do the starter ones, and then I think gamers can play with as many.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can. This is a kind of game if you're playing with a kid and you're for the first time, especially, you can pull your punches a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
Am I going to cover my kid or Wendy? Definitely Wendy's wizard, right? Like,
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
Wendy's wizard.
So you can play to the table. I think.
Correct.
Yep, I agree.
Yes.
Scores. Who wants to start off with this one?
I'll start off. I'm going to give this a 7.5. I like the way that just the general play is quick, it's clean, there's not too many choices on your turn. You have 3 cards, each card has 2 possibilities, potentially. Sometimes they only have 1. And so I like that you have that variety enough that you can choose things from your hand, so you're not just stuck with like rolling a single die or whatever, like back in Sorry. But you don't have too many choices that you're sitting there and calculating for ages trying to figure out how am I going to get this guy in this Raven's Keep. So
Yep.
I think it's just the right amount of decisions, the right level of weight to just be that family general weight. So I liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to do 7.5 too. I like what you said. I do think it's clean, and I like that control you have too. It's not like I do have control with the cards or with my potions and stuff like that to let me have some control of what's happening to my characters. I like that.
It's great.
Yep.
I'm going to give this one an 8. I think that this bridges that gap really well from like a game that you can play as a family, but also a game that if you have a game group that doesn't mind being a little bit silly, that like this cover is not going to turn them away from a game. You know, we only play serious games like Axis and Allies. Like, don't pull this out with that game group. But I think you could play this with a lot of game groups, and they'll have fun with it. They'll be surprised that it's not super reliant on memory, that there are lots of outs because of the way the cards are made. Or that at any turn you can just say, I'm going to ditch all 3 cards, and I only get to move 1 tower. But you always have an out on a turn.
Right.
I think it's really well made. Kramer and Kiesling show that they are still, at this day, phenomenal designers. So it's an 8 from me.
I'm going a bit higher. I'm going to 8.5. And I'll tell you why I go to that is because we played this with as a filler game, and then later we finished a game of Nemesis and ran right into this. And even then people were laughing. They're like, man, it's like, what? I'm not there? And it's just, it really hits. And it's light, but it's also strategic. There's that memory. I really liked it a lot more than I thought I would going in, and I picked it up. Wanted to review this mainly because people were talking about it at Gen Con this year, and everyone that walked around the table were like, that's really good. And it's got a lot to it. And, you know, you add the spells in there. They're not going to overcomplicate it. You choose what you want to add in there. So I really enjoy this game, and this will be added to our collection and be one of those beginning of the night, end of the night, middle of the night, whatever, but only in the night.
Only in the night.
Yeah, it's a nighttime game.
Well, there you go. So high score of an 8.5 is going to award Wandering Towers here a seal of excellence from us here at the Dice Tower. We all really enjoyed this one, so thanks for coming out to another review. My name is Chris Yee.
I'm Alex Evans.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Joey Evans.
Joey, I'm now covering you up.
I'm gone.
Do you know why towers wander at night?
Why?
Well, have you ever seen one wander during the day?
Da 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 da.